Welcome to today's presentation, Why DEP is Replacing Imaging and Why It's a Good Thing. My name is Nick Thompson and I will be your host today. Let's take a look at our agenda. First off, we're going to do just a little overview of Jamf just to make sure everyone's on the same page about who Jamf is and what we do. Then we're going to dive into imaging. What is the history of imaging? Why do people image? And what are the different aspects for imaging? Then we'll discuss DEP and VPP, these two Apple technologies, and really why we believe DEP and VPP is replacing imaging. Then we'll talk about how you can start building a transition plan from imaging to these modern tools like DEP and VPP. We'll wrap up with some next steps, and again, we'll do some Q&A at the end as well. Again, Jamp Overview here. Just want to make sure everyone's sort of on the same page. We are Jamf, and this is our mission. We help organizations succeed with Apple. This is all that we do. We only manage Apple products. So that's iPhones, Macs, iPads, Apple TVs. We don't manage PCs and we don't manage Android, and that's because we believe in the Apple platform. And we want to be able to provide the best possible Apple experience. How do we do that? Well, we do it with our two products. We've got Jamf Now, which is our sort of simple mobile device management solution, no IT required, great for smaller organizations. And we have Jamf Pro, our Apple management tool for IT professionals. Again, Now is just all about simple, easy setup, simple management, security without complexity, versus Pro is kind of the full lifecycle management of Apple products. And today's presentation will primarily focus on Pro. And these are what our products look like, right? It's all a web-based management console that you can access via any web browser. And it's very easy to use and really helps you get the most out of your Apple devices in your environment. And of course, we have a lot of customers that already rely on us for managing their Apple devices, over 10,000 organizations from some of the top technology companies out there, top Fortune 500. A lot of great schools use us, and including some of the best brands out there and some of the traditional markets that Apple's been in, like marketing. So let's dive into our main topics here, imaging. So imaging has been something that people have been doing for a long time with both PCs and, of course, on the Mac. And if we sort of think back to the history of Mac OS X, it came out in 2001, and, it was really the only way to deploy Mac OS X back then. Here's a nice screenshot of one of the first versions of OS X. Hopefully some people still remember it. And, this was the only way to provision a Mac for how you wanted it to behave. And what was great is Apple provided us with some native tools, and these tools still exist today. This is a system image utility, and it allows us to build our own custom disk images, or DMG files. And what could we do with these DMG files? Well, we could deploy them. And we could deploy them either locally using some really fast cables, in the case of FireWire and then eventually Thunderbolt, or we could deploy them over the network. And Apple has some great built-in tools to help us deploy these things over the network using something called NetBoot and NetInstall. So this is the sort of what it was the state of things when Mac OS X kind of first came out. And a lot of great third-party tools were then introduced to help automate this process to make it even better. And one of those tools, of course, was from us, Casper Imaging. And there were some other great ones too, like Deploy Studio, which is still great and used today, to Carbon Clone Copier and SuperDuper. Really helps you do these similar things, build an image and then deploy it. Now, the debate then became, how do you build an image? And there were sort of three prevailing methodologies that emerged from imaging. Either doing a monolithic image, a modular image or sort of this concept known as thin imaging. Let me just take you through these three here. So monolithic imaging, this is where you essentially erase the entire hard drive. You erase all the bits that are on there. And you create a snapshot of the entire operating system, including all of the settings that you want, all of the apps that you want, and you really package it all into one image, and then you deploy that out to all of your Macs. If you can get a hint of the image that I chose here for monolithic, it is kind of primitive. It takes a lot of work to do this. But this was kind of one of the prevailing methodologies that existed in imaging. Then along came this concept of modular imaging, kind of this Lego blocks approach to it. This is where you still erase the hard drive, but you just snapshot the operating system plus any sort of patch installs that Apple might have come out with. And we kind of assume that the operating system that Apple gives us is good and has everything in there that we need. And then we just simply apply all of the settings and apps that we need later on top of it. Lastly, there's this concept of thin imaging, which is really not quite imaging per se, but it's this concept where, again, we assume the installed operating system is known, good, working. Mac OS doesn't really have much adware or bloatware to it, so we can assume that everything that is in there is purposeful from Apple. And then we simply apply the settings and apps that we need on top of that. If you're familiar with the workflows that Jamf has, this is sort of known as user enrollment, where a user can just simply enroll their Mac from a website, or you install a package file. And then you can use things like internet recovery for redeploying computers. And we'll talk about that later on here. So this was the state of things, where we had monolithic images, modular imaging, or this thin imaging approach. And, it just ended up being kind of cumbersome because images can get out of date really quickly. Apple's released a lot of different operating systems over the past few years. And when you add up all the sort of dot releases that have happened as well too, well, there are over 110 Mac OS releases here since 2001, where you have all those dot releases adding up. And those dot releases are important because they're maintenance for your Macs, and they provide security and stability to them. So you want to make sure they're always on the newest things. Plus, adding on top of this, when you ever order new Apple hardware, and we all love new Apple hardware, the build numbers tend to change with new hardware too. So, when I get the new MacBook Pro with Touch Bar, it's got a different build number than what I was doing imaging for, and that new Mac doesn't know the old one, so it can't understand it. So you can't image with it. You have to update it all the time. So you ended up with this big problem of images being out of date all the time and being very cumbersome to build. So, Apple wanted to solve this. Apple wanted to make this easier for IT. And so with the Mavericks release back in June of 2013, they introduced something called DEP, or Device Enrollment Program, to help simplify the deployment process for new Macs moving forward. So to recap on imaging here, really this was just historically the only way to do Macs. There was a lot of great tools out there, including ones that we made, but imaging just is cumbersome to build this stuff, and new Macs ship with that incompatible operating system, and things just come out of date quickly, and we believe kind of imaging is sort of fading away. Now, to address a big topic here, this is a new file system that Apple's coming out with, known as APFS. And, they've publicly talked about this during WWDC, and we know that APFS is coming in 10.13 High Sierra. Now, it's still in beta with Apple, and so we don't know the full impact of APFS in imaging right now. We will know closer to the fall when Apple sort of finalizes all this. So stay tuned to Jamp for more information, and keep up to date with the materials that Apple is publishing as well too. But just wanted to address APFS here now, but this is about all that we know so far. So why is DEP and VPP really replacing imaging? Well, if you look at the different ways to bring a Mac into management, we have these 4 options. And we touched on imaging. We have a network scan tool that works as well too. This is called Recon. And we touched on this concept of user-initiated enrollment, which was kind of that thin imaging approach where a user just downloads a package file. The other way is DEP, Device Enrollment Program. DEP is really zero-touch deployment. IT does not have to touch these devices at all. You can just hand them to a user and they get set up with the Mac. And all you have to do is order devices from Apple or from your authorized resellers that support DEP, and you'll have this auto-enrollment during the setup process. And what's great is you can actually link devices that you purchased all the way back from March 2011 to your DEP account with Apple. So how does this all work? Well, this is the concept here, right? To be able to just hand a Mac to a user where they don't have to do really anything. They just have to open up the box, power it on, and there is no step 3. And this is actually how we hand out Macs to new Jamf employees here. So we do it, and of course, a lot of other organizations do it as well. You simply just sign up for DEP at Apple's website, deploy.apple.com. You register your company, and you link any purchases that you've done with the deployments program here. You then just need to link your Jamf instance to your DEP account. So for those who haven't seen Jamf Pro, this is it. I've got a couple of tabs up top to navigate between my computers, mobile devices, and users. But I'm going to go to my settings here in the upper right. And here's my nice long settings page. And I'll open up a device enrollment program. And I do this sort of handshake between DEP portal and our Jamf instance here, where essentially I need to upload a public key to the deployments page and download a server token from their page and upload it to the Jamf server here. So this establishes trust between our DEP account and Jamf Pro. After we've established this trust, we get to see all of the devices that we've purchased that are linked onto our DEP account here, right? It lists the model, the serial number, description of it, and that's where I can then start to manage things. So I'm going to head back over to the Computers tab, and I'm going to go to something that we call pre-stage enrollments. This is where we're going to start building our DEP settings. And these are the options that I have. And one that I want to point out here is that we can make sure that management is mandatory. That's what that MDM profile is. And I'm going to make sure that people can't remove that management profile either. So all new Macs will be automatically managed and they can't be unmanaged by the user. I also have some really nice controls over what sort of accounts are created for my users. Maybe I don't want them to be full local administrators. In fact, I want them to just be standard accounts, so I would select that standard account option. Or if I'm using network-based accounts, I can skip this step altogether. So the question of, DEP doesn't work because I can't control initial account setup, well, that problem has been solved thanks to this feature here, controlling whether they are local admins or standard accounts. And then, of course, maybe I don't want all of my users to have the exact same DEP experience, so I can set up multiple DEP settings for different groups. My developers get a certain settings, finance gets a different set, marketing gets a different set, or I could group them by offices. However I want to group them, I've got that control. So again, here's a recap of the different DEP settings that you can do as an administrator, from controlling your information, requiring authentication for users to log in with LDAP credentials upon booting up, restricting that user account, making sure MDM is mandatory, and skipping a lot of those setup screens that we see as we boot up the Mac for the first time. I can also enforce my password right away too. So here's what it looks like for the end user. I'm booting up my Mac for the first time. I get to choose my country, I choose my language, I connect it to a network. This does not have to be your corporate network here. This could just be an open network, essentially. It just needs to talk to the internet so that it can say your Mac is part of DEP. It requires a configuration. So this is the screen that my users get. It says, this Mac will be automatically configured by, and then you can insert your company name there. I've then turned on LDAP sign-on, so I require my users to authenticate with their LDAP credentials here. And once they do that, they get to create their local computer account. And again, this is where we decided to restrict it. So we don't want this to be a full local administrator here. This will just be a standard account. And I'm enforcing a password policy right here as well, too. My Mac's set up, I'm brought to my home screen, and I get a management notification. And all of this stuff is starting to happen now in the background. I'm installing settings right now in the background. I'm installing software in the background, and I'm enforcing security settings. This is really like I'm imaging this Mac, except I'm imaging it over the air. That's really the power of DEP. And this is all thanks to a number of different technologies that are working behind the scenes. So those settings that we're doing, well, that's all thanks to mobile device management, or MDM. And this is really just Apple's built-in management framework that lets you build profiles to define these various settings inside the operating system. And it's all delivered over the air using Apple's push notification service. And you build these files right inside of Jamf. And here's just some examples of the different profiles that you can build, enforcing passwords, doing restrictions, network settings, accounts, security, and some more advanced ones. How am I getting apps onto my Mac? Well, I'm using Apple's Volume Purchase Program, or VPP as it's called. And this is where I can purchase and license apps from Apple, and I can then distribute them to my users. So this is distribution of App Store apps. So these are everything that's in the Mac App Store. And I can either choose to tie this to someone's Apple ID, or I can remain Apple ID independent and just deploy it to the device. So I've got some flexibility there. I do not have to use Apple IDs, which is really nice. So great for Mac App Store apps. But what about software outside of that, right? Photoshop, Word, PowerPoint, Dropbox, things like that. Well, that's where our agent comes in play. And this is a binary that's automatically installed right after enrollment. It adds a hidden admin account for you that you control, you set the password for, and that hidden admin account grants you root access to the Mac. And that means you can do things like install policies, run scripts, install extra software, and more. And this is kind of the different things that you can do with that agent, from installing package files to running scripts, etc. And this is what it looks like to package and deploy a non-Mac App Store app. So I would essentially take a snapshot of it. It packages up into a PKG, and then I push it out using a policy. What's great, too, is I can put these things in something called SelfService. SelfService is a tool that's part of Jamf that lets you populate it as IT with all approved apps and scripts and printer settings. So these can be really anything you want them to be, and it provides your users a unique way to just get things that they need when they need it. So instead of having to build an image with everything possible in there, you can just offload it into SelfService so users can grab only the tools that they need. So to recap on DEP here, again, it's zero-touch deployment. I've added my settings and security thanks to MDM, and I've added my apps from the App Store via VPP, and any extra software using the Jamf agent. Again, this is great for new devices. But of course, what about all your old devices out there? So this is really where you want to start looking at building a transition plan, because We believe DEP is really just the best experience for enrolling a Mac. Certainly, imaging is not going away, at least anytime soon that we know of. Imaging isn't dead, but you want to start planning around DEP. Start building out some non-imaging workflows. Really think through, what does this user experience look like? What does it look like when I hand a user a new Mac? How do I want that to behave? So try to leverage DEP when possible. For re-imaging, think of this sort of concept of active time versus passive time, which I'll talk about here in a second. How long does it actually take you to maintain your images versus doing internet recovery? So here's some suggestions that we have for you for how to approach this sort of transition. Start using DEP for all new hardware that you have. Use internet recovery for any old hardware that you might have that you need to sort of re-image. And relegate sort of imaging just for your specific special use cases. So again, DEP for new hardware. Build out your DEP settings and your groups appropriately. You apply those policies and profiles right after enrollment, sort of wirelessly imaging the Mac here, and only deploy essential software right away. You don't want to bog down the install process. And that's where you can really leverage then SelfService for any additional resources that your users might need. So try to keep it as thin or as slim as possible when you're deploying it out. For old Macs out in the field that you might need to re-image, if you will, internet recovery is great. This is where you reboot the Mac with Command R, and it essentially just downloads a fresh copy of macOS for you. Really, it only takes about 5 minutes of active time here. I only have to click through a few options to kick off the install. It does take about 30 minutes to complete the fresh install, but that's really this passive time that I'm not really having to do anything. And then the Mac will be ready to be set up again, either via DEP if that serial number is registered to DEP, or relying on that user enroll process, that user-initiated enrollment. And really, this can just be less time and effort than maintaining all of those images, which takes a lot of active time to get very small passive time out of it. And of course, continue using imaging for your specific use cases out there. There's a lot of regulated industries that still require a full disk erase no matter what. So if you're in one of those regulated industries, you just have to go through that complete erasing all of the bits and rewriting them. And of course, leverage all the native tools and third-party tools like Jamp Imaging for that. And again, keep it as minimal as possible and sort of rely on the MDM framework, the VPP framework, and the Jamf agent to install all the stuff that you need afterwards. So if you're going to have to image, do modular imaging. Don't do monolithic imaging. And really try to be prepared for any future changes. The Apple file system is a great thing that Apple's putting out there, only they kind of know right now if imaging will fully work with it. But you want to always just be prepared for any future changes that could happen. So to recap here, Jamf Pro really lets you do the complete lifecycle management of your Macs, from doing those zero-touch deployments that we touched on so much here, to configuring them with all the different MDM commands that are available, to getting the right apps on there thanks to VPP and the Jamf agent, gathering inventory data, making sure everything's secure, and providing your users that unique way to get apps that they need when they need it thanks to SelfService. Some technical details here on the hosting of this. You can either host Jamf Pro in the cloud, which is just super easy and sort of no maintenance required on it, because anytime we come out with an update, it's just automatically updated. We've got data centers in North America and EU, and we use AWS as our infrastructure for that. Or, of course, you can run this on-premise if you'd like as well. We work on a Linux server, Windows server, macOS server, whatever you got. You can virtualize it too. It's really just a MySQL database talking to Tomcat and some Java in there as well. We, of course, work with all the different Apple programs and services that is out there, from the push notification service that establishes that trust between our devices, to DEP, which we talk so much about, and VPP for the apps. Now, if you're a school, Apple has Apple School Manager, which is really a combination of DEP and VPP in one portal specifically for schools. And of course, we work great with that too. We also work great with a lot of the things that you have in your environment already, whether that's directory services or Active Directory. We work with single sign-on tools that works on the SAML protocol. If you've got SCCM, we've got a great way for you to share inventory data from Jamf into SCCM. We, of course, work with all the cool things that Cisco and Apple are doing together with their Fastlane and Cisco ICE. We've got a ServiceNow app that also lets you share inventory data. And if you want to go beyond that, of course, we've got a great API for you to customize as well, too. So some next steps for you here. Check out jamf.com. We've got lots of great sales and engineer folks across the globe that would love to talk to you about your environment specifically. Click on that little chat with us icon and get started. Check out some more of our webinars online as well too. So if you want to dive into any deeper topics, we've got a great library there. And check out Jamf Nation. Jamf Nation is our free community forum. There are over 40,000 IT members here on Jamf Nation that let you really just interact with the community and find out what other folks are doing. Check out all the great discussions around DEP and imaging on Jamf Nation. Thanks, everyone, and I hope you have a wonderful day.